Story time! Imagine you went on a hiring spree and you brought in some of the most talented, experienced, senior people you've ever met. And you were convinced that they will 10x your company. But within 6 months, every single one of them was gone and your business had actually shrunk. A client of mine went through exactly this, and the mistake he made is far more common than it should. I will show you what really went down, how you can avoid his mistakes, and the 3 questions you need to ask yourself before your next senior hire. So before going into the mistakes, I think you should know a little bit more about the company. The company had been around for several years, and it has grown to be about 10 people, and it was profitable. The founder ran it the way most founders run small companies. He decided the priorities, he decided what method, and if anything needs approval, it went straight to him. If something was unclear, it also just went to him. He had bigger ambitions though. He wanted to expand into adjacent business lines and grow this business into an industry leader. Around this time, the founder was working with a business coach who gave him a challenge that is actually quite common in this world: 10x your company. I've heard this phrase so many times. The founder took it seriously. He thought about what 10x would require, and he came to the conclusion that what he needed was people. Senior people with a proven track record from big, reputable companies. So, being all motivated, he sprung into action, and over a few weeks, he hired almost 10 people. And these are senior operators across different functions. You have someone to run product, someone to run marketing, someone to run operations, sales, etc., etc. And within 3 months, the team doubled. On paper, this looks like a company growing up. A founder finally bringing in adults, building a real leadership team, packing some serious punches to take over the industry. The founder was psyched, the team was psyched, and the new hires were psyched. And then 2 months in, problems started appearing. What actually happened? The senior hires realized from day one that there was no documentation and no onboarding, but that was fine. They were used to leading big teams with a lot of structure around them, but they were also excited by the idea of getting their hands dirty again after so many years. After spending a full month on urgent operational work to meet pre-existing deadlines, they finally had time to get to the strategic work they signed up for, which was looking at business strategy, defining goals, hiring people, implementing structure, and all that. But they soon ran into a wall because the founder provided no financial visibility and granted none of them the authority to make key decisions. Their proposals and initiatives were blocked most of the time, not with, a hard no, but a subtle evasion. The yes just never came and the topic was changed. When they pushed for structure to reduce the chaotic way of working, the founder undermined them, saying, "But we're a small company, we need to be agile." He told the rest of the team, though, how grateful he was to the senior hires for making things more structured, yet he continued to do things exactly as before. 3 months in, the founder started expressing doubt. He had justified the higher salaries of the senior hires to himself with the math that one expensive senior hire must be multiple times more productive than a lesser paid junior. The output, however, from the past months clearly didn't show that, and he was not shy about showing his disappointment. Within 6 months, every single one of the senior hires either left or were pushed out. The founder felt a sense of relief, because now that the team is small again, he could feel in control. But things didn't get back to the way they were before. His cash reserves took a hit from hiring so many senior people at once. And the senior hires had been well-liked and respected by the team. So when all of them left, pretty much around the same time, morale dipped to an all-time low. And one by one, the original team members started leaving too. The founder ended up shrinking the business. There was no mention of the 10x growth plan ever again. So what went wrong here? Plenty of things went wrong, but there were 3 that did most of the damage. And the scary part isn't that these mistakes were made, is how common these mistakes are. The first problem he had was that he believed that talent is the system, meaning if you have talent, you don't need systems. In his head, hiring excellent people would automatically produce an excellent company. His logic was simple. Hire excellent people, hand them the mess, and let them sort it out. That's what excellent people do. If they can't, well, they weren't excellent. He also believed that in a chaotic sink or swim environment, the weak hires would weed themselves out. And if you rinse and repeat enough times, you will have a team of survivors who can do it all. This sounds tough-minded, but it's actually a fantasy. You're not testing them for their ability to do the jobs well. You're testing them for whether they can tolerate ambiguity. And the people who survive are the ones with the highest pain threshold, or at least least leverage to push back, or the ones that simply don't care. And none of this is the same as good. And honestly, if these hires were producing anything in this chaos, what could they have produced with a working setup? So hiring excellent people is excellent, but you need to set them up for success by giving them clarity, resources, and authority. And without that, you end up with a bunch of expensive people on the payroll producing subpar results. The second mistake the founder made was he hired people to move mountains, but only gave them shovels. Imagine you're opening up a restaurant and you hired the best chef in the country. You told her to make this the best restaurant ever. And then you put her in a kitchen with no stove, no knives, a bit of ingredients, and worst of all, no budget. Is she still the best chef in the country? Technically, yes. Is she cooking up an 8-course dinner tonight? No, she spent the day looking for pans and she's exhausted. She did manage to serve one dish. But now you're mad. You're mad at her for failing to live up to her reputation. The thing that makes senior people senior is that they have the know-how and the authority to operate at a high level inside a clear setup. It doesn't mean that they can create the setup themselves. Just like our chef, even if she knows what the optimal kitchen layout should be, it doesn't mean that she could install the stove herself. Back to our story. It didn't take long for the senior hires to realize that they were never supposed to build a team. They were the team. Even the most seasoned operators cannot work miracles if the basics aren't in place. And these are really basics. Who decides what, who owns what, and what the budgets actually are. Now, you might be thinking, fine, then I'll hire someone whose job is to build the structure. So like a chief operations officer or a business system consultant brought in specifically to define how the company runs. And this is totally legitimate. Plenty of companies do this and it works. You can even hire me, for example. Shameless plug. But this only works if 3 things are true. The role is defined, the authority is real, and a founder is willing to take direction from their own hire. Which brings me to the third problem. His third problem was that he thought he was above the systems. To say this plainly, the founder didn't like being told what to do. He believed systems were for other people, not him. And that is why he would praise the new organization attempts in public while telling his senior hires in private that we need to be agile. This is also why he evaded every request for visibility on goals, plans, budgets. He was the founder, and he reserved the right to run the company however he pleased. He could hold other people accountable, but the moment a senior hire tried to hold him accountable, he felt threatened, and he started quietly labeling them as too expensive. Here's the thing about systems. They only work if the person at the top lives inside them too. You can't change priorities whenever you feel like it because now there's a process for that. You can't override your head of marketing's call because that is her decision now. You can't keep the money a secret because people running things need to know what they're dealing with. Every system you add to the company puts a small fence around what the founder gets to do on a whim. For a founder who is used to doing whatever he wants, whenever he wants, that fence feels like a cage. He hired senior people to make his company look more grown up. But the reality is, he didn't want to grow up himself. Now, what can you do with the story and all of this information? If you've watched this far and you're sitting there thinking, will this happen to me? Well, he did go through his first 10 hires without much issue. I'm just gonna say that hiring juniors and hiring people into senior leadership positions are completely different ball games. You can't hire seniors and expect them to be minions. That is not what you hired them for. They will challenge you because otherwise they can't do their jobs right, and you have to be psychologically prepared for that. Here's a small framework. Before your next hire, not just senior hires, stop asking, is this person good? I mean, okay, you should also ask that, but more importantly, ask these 3 questions instead. What does this person actually own? Like, specifically, what can they point at and say, that is mine? What can they decide without checking with you? These would include decisions you might disagree with. And lastly, what happens to that ownership when their judgment and yours diverge? That is a hard question. If you can't answer those 3 questions clearly before the next hire, maybe take a step back and think about it before making any more moves. Hiring is not just a financial decision. It's a decision that affects both your life, your company's life, and the other person's life. That's all from me today. I know the topic today is a little bit heavy, but if you found this useful, don't forget to give me a like and subscribe for more operational fun. And it's usually more fun than this. All right. Ganbatte ne? Ciao, ciao.